I received a letter during mail call in federal prison in January 2009 that really changed the trajectory of my life. When I was in federal prison, like so many guys, I wanted to find meaning in the journey and read and write and think and begin to create through crisis, but it still didn't answer the question, what am I going to do when I release from federal prison with restitution? I released in 2009 into this worldwide recession, so naturally I was concerned. And I used to express these concerns to my now business partner, Michael Santos, while working alongside him every day in the quiet room. And he would encourage me to look around, ask questions, and make choices based off the answers to those questions. For example, he would ask me, how many men in this prison are just like you, who graduated college, who didn't have bad intentions, who never imagined in a million years they would become immersed in the criminal justice system? Moreover, how many people like you regret how they prepared for sentencing or worked with your lawyer? Look around, talk, ask questions. And I did over a course of weeks and months. I would form friendships and we would kind of like interview each other. And all of them were just like me, didn't have bad intentions, yet there we are standing for count in federal prison. From there, Michael said, you have an opportunity to educate and teach people in a way that would have educated and taught you. That's an opportunity that you should seize, but it's going to require work. It's going to require more than you just reading books, which is great, and even writing some book reports, which is great. I encourage you to put it out there for the world to see and encourage your family to hold you accountable. And for weeks and a couple of months, I balked at that suggestion, the idea of writing from prison and putting it out there for the world to see and hold me accountable and my flaws and the good and bad and everything that I'm learning while in prison. Then finally, after a few months of him offering the suggestion and me telling him no chance, I went into his quiet room one day, and I went into the quiet room and I said, I think it's time. He said it was time months ago, let's get to work. He then encouraged me to begin doing some writing that he would review. I wrote it, he reviewed it, and we put it up on a website that is still there till this day. And I was simply writing about my experience in a minimum security camp, what I was learning, things that I would have done differently while going through sentencing, the good and bad of life in a minimum security camp. And based on that blog, we began to receive hundreds of letters a month in federal prison. From there, Michael encouraged me to do something creative, to begin reaching out to and actually writing, soliciting business schools with the hopes that I can contribute to their curriculum on ethics and white-collar crime. So my mom visited me. I then said, pick 15 schools across the country. One of them was DePaul University, where I had a friend who had gone to school there. And I said, send me the information on these 15 schools, some professors, the address, and I'm going to send them a letter and let them know that I'm in prison. I would like to educate their business students on the consequences of white-collar crime, and just let them know that I'm available to contribute to their curriculum. Of course, my mom did it. Within a week, I sent out these letters. After a month, I didn't get one response. And if you were to read my blog going back to prison around this time, November, December-ish, it's really focused on like prison, consulting, preparing for sentencing, mitigation, life in prison, things of that nature. There wasn't a real focus on ethics and white-collar crime, pressure, rationalization, opportunity. But I continued to write these letters, and it was humbling at times to spend so much time writing this blog, walk over to the mail slot where there was a chain around it, drop it, mail it to this university, and think, wow, I'm doing work every single day and no one's reading it, nobody cares, but I continued to do it anyway. I figured I had the time. In the worst case, even if they didn't respond, what do I have? I have the dignity of trying, I have the experience of writing the letter, and like, what's the worst that can come from it? Absolutely nothing. I'm right back to where I started. So then I wrote another 15 or 20 letters through November and December, and I didn't get one response. And my mom would visit and she'd say, has anyone responded? I'd say, that's a big negative. And I'm also starting to put some of these letters up on my blogs because I'm beginning to articulate what I hope to do once I'm released from prison, primarily focus on helping white-collar defendants traverse this journey. Then I wrote more letters to these universities. And eventually in January 2009 at mail call, I received a response from DePaul University, and it changed my life because the professor said, thank you for sending these letters. All of our students are reading your blog, and every day we open up class by discussing your prison blog, and it's so fascinating, and so many of these students identify with you. You're educated, you were an athlete, you were raised well, you had some privilege and opportunity, and there you are in federal prison. It's a life you never imagined, and you said something really profound in one of your blogs that all of us discuss. I'm like, what did I say? I don't recall. And apparently I had said something akin to, if I was in If I was a college student, I would probably tune out at my message because I never imagined in a million years that I would someday become immersed in the criminal justice system. So I would sleep, I would tune out, I would tweet, I'd go on Facebook. I wouldn't listen. I didn't figure the message would have resonated with me. And she's like, that's so profound. So many students were tuned out until they read that, and now they realize if you don't live ethically, if you don't live faithfully to your values, these things can happen. If you're available when you get released from prison, we'd love to have you come and speak to our school, and we're going to pay you. So I'm reading this letter and I'm like, pay me? What? I just wanted to write some blogs for you and educate your students. This is absolutely incredible. Of course, I responded in about 15 minutes. They wrote back immediately and then said, between getting your letter, I've reached out to the warden at Taft Prison, and I'm seeking permission to come out to the prison to interview and film you for a documentary we're going to create on white-collar crime. Would you like to participate? Of course I would. I did that documentary from prison in February 2009. Here's how it changed my life. I was writing all of these letters to business schools about ethics and white-collar crime and wanting to speak. None of them were responding, which was really going to condition me to just focus on the prison type stuff. Indeed, if you read Lessons from Prison that Michael and I began working on in like November of 2008, it's really heavily focused on prison mitigation and sentencing. That was loud. I'm here at USC. I just got done speaking. But then after I got that letter from DePaul, you'll notice the book shifts in Lessons from Prison to ethics and morality and philosophy, and tying that into prison, but also using it as a tool to educate business students on the consequences. The book would have been different had I not got that letter, and I probably wouldn't have pursued the career that I did after I was released from prison, which was traveling the country, lecturing to business schools on ethics and white-collar crime. So I guess the takeaway in receiving that letter, it affirmed what I was doing. It encouraged me to pivot, which is a message I always share to everyone. If you don't start, you don't know when to pivot. I started, I knew when to pivot, and like every day I would write a blog. One day it was about prison, the next day it was about ethics. Go back to prison, you could read it. Go back to my blog from prison and you'll see it. Ethics, prison, ethics, prison. The takeaway, I was willing to do that work in prison and continue to write letters even though I never got a response. There were days I felt foolish doing this work and writing and reading and putting it out there and never getting a response. I'm like, when will this end? Will anyone ever respond? I attribute any success I have as a speaker, finishing up at the USC Marshall School of Business today, from writing those letters in prison, getting that response and seizing that opportunity. And that's what I want all of you to do while you're in prison. Create wonderful assets. Share them with stakeholders, whether it's a university or a probation officer or your family. Don't just read, it's a passive activity. Take what you read, create, and share it. In creating that asset, Lessons from Prison put me in a position to get myriad speaking events after my release. It wasn't because I just cold called them and said I want to speak, which I did. It's because I had something to share with them. I want you to do the same thing. That letter changed my life, and I'm very grateful that you're all part of the White Collar Advice community.